Hi everyone, my name is Daniela. It is a true pleasure and a privilege to be sharing some of my journey in applying for a promotion with you today. I will start by telling you a little bit about who I am here at the university so that I can contextualize some of what I'll be saying later on, but also so that you can grab onto pieces that you relate to and hopefully you can make use of most of what I say today and apply it to your process. I'm an education specialist at the Faculty of Health and Medical Sciences. I am also the Associate Dean of Learning Quality and Student Experience at FHMS. I am the Chair of the Student Misconduct Tribunal for the university. I'm one of the Adept Academic Leads, and I was successful in my promotion at the end of last year. As I list all of these titles, I also want you to note that it was a big year for me last year. Most of these roles I started in 2024, and at this time last year when I was starting to write my application for promotion, I was really starting out in these new spaces. So it's not these roles that greatly contributed to my success in getting promoted. It was what had happened in the years prior to that. This is of my last 10 years. So I finished my PhD in 2010 at the University of Adelaide and continued my postdoc in the same lab, a very successful, very research-focused lab. And it was at the end of 2014 that I was invited to deliver some lectures, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And despite being in love with my research, I decided to take up an opportunity to apply for a teaching position. I was successful in getting that position, and I loved it enough to a year later change my contract to that of an education specialist, having realized that most of my energy is being invested into growing me as an educator, and I really wanted to apply myself to that role so holistically. I realized that I was going to make some sacrifices when it came to my research. It was in 2017 that I wrote my application for promotion to level C and was successful, and here we are today. So what I'll do for the next few slides is chunk these 10 years and segregate them up in a way where, upon reflection, I realized there were some significant periods and points of growth and personal and academic development that then led to, I guess, providing coherence to the story that I was writing about last year. So to start right at the beginning, when I first came on board as a lecturer, again, as I said, realized how truly passionate I am about teaching and pretty much just taught. And that is the success of that, reimagining some of the first year courses that we teach in the faculty and delivering on the student experience, on the CELT Commons, gathering that evidence. That got me to get promoted in those first 2 years. From there on, the next few years were spent, I guess, finding the substance of my role and me within it. So this was a significant period of searching, identifying, and growth. The reason why I'm going this far back is because my promotion application was based on my work for about 7 years prior to last year, because I did have special considerations approved for additional time due to the leave that I'd taken off. So some of it was going right back to soon after getting that first promotion to level C. So I did have to reflect all the way back and create a coherent story in my mind to then be able to present it to the promotions panel and demonstrate to them of a level of awareness and growth, and then the value of the work that I had conducted. So you can see that I've got 2018 to 2021 there, but there was a significant shift at 2020 also, which I'll cover in a minute. I realised, having changed my contract to that of an education specialist, I realised that my focus needs to be spread across education, leadership, service to the university. I'm speaking right to the academic promotions criteria now. And my research is going to need to fit within these domains. So across 2018 to 2020, I heavily focused on my teaching, as you can see it there bolded in large font too. Whilst I guess I found my space in terms of what it is that I want to invest into and become a leader of. So I taught a lot. I teach foundational knowledge in terms of health and medical education. So that means that I could teach across, and I used to teach across a number of programs, the first few year levels, those courses across a number of programs within our faculty, which gave me wonderful breadth in terms of understanding different student cohorts and different experiences and how we can elevate that collectively. And in 2020, end of 2020, 2021 is where a wonderful opportunity arose to lead the curriculum development of the Foundations of Medicine, which is a 12-unit and mega course, a first-year, first semester course for our new medical program. And what that provided me an opportunity for is to not only build and lead the development of that course, but also the program itself. And that elevated my leadership set of skills as I grew into the role, as well as those of an educator. From there on, I also looked for an opportunity to engage with leadership and understanding processes that are run at the university level. Again, an opportunity arose for me to be the academic representative of the university on a national initiative. At the time, it was called Student Voice Australia. And again, I feel like this catapulted me up into an arena and a space that I wasn't privy to before this time. So it was at the end of 2021 where I felt a lot of growth had happened, a lot of hard work had happened, a lot of growth, and my maternity leave came at a perfect time to remove myself from all of the busy of that work and really take time out to reflect. It's not often that we get this opportunity, but I think I made the most of it, coupled with having won a faculty level career coaching award. Speaking to the coach, I think I had about 6 or 7 sessions across that year, and reflecting on the achievements of the previous few years. It provided, again, a really beautiful foundation for alignment, for me to think about who it is that I want to come back to the university as, where do I want my impact to be, and how is it that I want to lead. It is at this time that I realised that my leading wasn't as explicit, perhaps, as I would have liked it to be, and formulating this mindset in my head and coming back with intentionality was really important to me. And I think that that's exactly what happened when I returned in 2023. And becoming a new parent is also, whilst very challenging, it's also useful because it forces you to rethink and reevaluate some of your priorities and investment of energy. So I think that coming back in 2023 and feeling very safe and empowered to make these decisions led to that big 2024 with the list of titles that you saw at the start of this presentation. So this is where, again, we've got teaching and leadership, but leadership now took priority. Whilst I love my teaching and the immediate reward that I get from being in direct contact with students, I realized that I owe it to myself for my impact to reach beyond the classrooms where I can physically be present. And this is where I looked at how is it that I can communicate some of my insights and some of my knowledge, and how can I grow as a leader within the faculty, the University of Adelaide, and then of course now with this amazing opportunity that we have building the future university. So that is where I looked at applying for roles that became available. And I was successful in becoming the Associate Dean within the faculty, again the Adept Academic Lead, and I put my hand up and was nominated for a number of ways to contribute to the building of the AU, whether through the student experience portfolio or some of the curriculum work. And what really mattered to me is that I was aligned across most of these discussions, processes, working groups, meetings, tasks. I was aligned across the ways that I was contributing, where I was investing my energy, and the spaces that I was growing and learning in. I know this sounds quite broad and maybe abstract, but this is what really helped me in writing the application at the start of last year. So let's get to my approach. I'll start with that first slide that I started the presentation with, and I thought about who am I within this university, and who am I to the university, and how does what I do for the university, for the students, for my colleagues and peers, how does that fit within a story for someone who hasn't met me before to read through and realize the value and the potential that I hold? So that is the mindset with which I started thinking about writing the application. Here are some recommendations now. I found this really useful. I started with the summary page. So I was limited by an A4 sized page, and I started putting notes down across the criteria that are set out in the academic promotions criteria, and started writing my achievements, some of my ideas, some of my philosophy across those criteria to get it into a single page. And this is the page that I started building on. By the end, this page was heavily refined because I was then trying to fit the next 10 pages or 12 pages down to that single page. But it gave me a starting point, and I guess it was a breakthrough into the daunting process of writing a dozen pages on yourself and your work. What I think was also really important to keep on reminding myself about is what needed to be highlighted for the level D that I was applying for. So it was different to my previous application and application for awards that some of you may have lying around. I really needed to demonstrate how it is that who I am, according to my philosophy, my pedagogical approach, how is that demonstrated across the way that I lead? And what is the influence and the impact of my work? What does it look like in my most intimate or local spaces? What does that look like across the faculty? What does it look like across the university, the community, and then beyond? And something that was really useful for me and perhaps justifies my long lead-in is to be able to demonstrate my level of self-awareness, where I got to spoke about my development, my growth, and my journey across the approved period of work and achievement that I was applying for. I think that as a leader, if you're able to demonstrate your vision and then your achievement of where you've been and where you're taking that and where you're going, it's really important. It was a really valued exercise for me personally. Now, you would have heard this before, and that is to present evidence. The only bit that I will add is to present evidence that speaks to your story. The way that I saw evidence was this common thread that almost validated the story that you were telling to this reader that doesn't know your work. So that means that it has to really speak to what you're trying to illustrate. And I'll make sense of it as I go through the list. So as an educator, we all have CELTs, and please use those. If there is something that you want, because the panel will have access to your CELT results, if there is something that you want to specifically call out or clarify, I'd recommend that you do that in the presentation. I'll work through these individually. So I've got statements written down second. This is support statements from your colleagues, from your peers, mentors, students. The reason why this was of specific importance to me is because my story was somewhat based on my ability to lead and bring teams of people together, even in challenging situations. And you saw the breadth of some of my roles. I'm involved in the Student Misconduct Tribunal hearings, which is so different to what I was doing previously. But for me, that spoke to my adaptability, to my way to liaise between different teams across the academic space. And that's where statements from colleagues that have just started working with me that I felt I had an impact on were really important. If you've got numbers, stats, graphs, data presented in a way that is really great for the panel to gain a quick and easy insight into the impact of your work, please use those. Screenshots and links, I use this for the Student Voice Australasia website to demonstrate, because they may not be aware of how big this initiative is, and now it's international as well. So I provided a link to the site, to the work that I contributed to, a screenshot of some of the work that we did, just to illustrate and demonstrate the size of the impact. So if you have spent a lot of time contributing to something that isn't university-based, please provide some evidence as to how important and significant that work is and that impact outside the university may be. Awards are always a great way to validate some of your work because they are like peer-reviewed assessments. So someone's put a stamp of approval, someone who's in the know, and that gives the panel confidence that that piece of work that you're referring to is well deserving of that award. Now, on the flip side of that is for you not to worry if you don't have these awards. We're all well aware of how time-consuming and energy requiring applications for awards are. So don't be discouraged of putting a promotion application in if you don't have a long list of awards to speak to your achievements. I've got TRP and PARD-P down the bottom. They are really, really important. If you are an education, particularly if you're an education specialist, or if there is a significant weighting on your promotion application aligned to your teaching, I highly, strongly recommend that you get your teaching reviewed and that you submit those reviews alongside your application. I did not have one of these because I actually didn't have any teaching because of what my last year looked like to be reviewed at the point in time. But I do realise that this was one of my vulnerabilities, and if I did have a second go, this is definitely something that I would take up on and present alongside my application. Let's now talk about the support resources that are out there for you to make this process as easy as possible. The first point of call is the academic promotions site and all the support that they offer. The team is truly amazing. I have been just overwhelmed by the amount of support they offer personally, answering my phone calls and emails. So again, please lean into this space. I started off with the academic promotions criteria. As I said at the start or earlier in the presentation, this is something where even to assess whether I think I should be considering applying, I looked at that column for level D. I looked at across the different domains, and I looked at the points that I could assign my work and my achievements to, and whether it was bulky and significant enough to start putting that into a promotion application. The next few on the list were of specific significance to me because of the journey that I had taken up until returning from my parental leave in 2023. So the staff values and behaviour framework was really useful as I engaged with it to identify what values I hold within me that are representative of the university, and how can I best do work that provides me with that level of fulfillment. And the leadership development framework was particularly useful. I hadn't known that document existed prior to last year, and what that provided me with is explicit language of the university in the way that it views its leaders and the expectations of the leaders. And again, that helped me connect the dots between the work that I was already involved with and doing to how the university acknowledges, appreciates, and respects us as leaders of selves and leaders of the teams around us. So have a read of that document if you haven't, because I've personally found it very valuable. Colleagues and mentors and people around you, your head of school, I strongly encourage you to engage with previously successful applicants. Feel free to reach out to me if you have aligned or resonated with most of what I said, because these people are your support and they are your cheerleaders. And if you have critical friends who will be honest with you and be able to hear some of your thoughts and perhaps formulate some of your thinking when you're stuck, perhaps share their view of your story and help you shape it in a way that someone who doesn't know you as well will also be able to understand the significance and the value of what you're trying to say. I strongly encourage you to lean into all of the resources listed above and reach out to other people who have been through the process and whose lists may be a lot bigger than that. The next couple of slides speak to what to do and what not to do, both of them according to me and my individual experience. So take from them what you will and what you find useful. I think that it's really important for you to tell your story. And I know that people, you keep on hearing about how important the narrative is. But I think it's really important, once you've written your first page, your statement summary, to then start with your philosophy, your approach to teaching. What is your pedagogical approach? How do you see and view yourself as a member of the university? And then reinforce that with the achievements and the accolades and the work that you've done. Here's some practical tips. Start early and check in regularly. So this is based on stuff that I didn't do. I didn't start early enough, which led to some really stressful days in the lead up to the due date for submission. And I had colleagues who were applying for the same level and were sending their completed applications off to colleagues to review when I hadn't even started working on that summary page. So whilst I'm saying that you should start early, and if you haven't started by now, please start. But also I want to not have you discouraged if you haven't started by now, because you're obviously here, you're thinking about it, so you're in the right space. Start having those conversations with your head of school, which is my next line, I think, and engage with the resources that are available on the academic promotions site, and that will help for you to identify where you're at with this for this year. Something that I did do once I realised that I was late to starting early is I blocked out chunks in my calendar, and do that early from now until the due date, because as you know, things creep in. And also some of those large chunks that I block out weren't as productive in terms of words on paper as I thought they would be at the time, but really sometimes I just needed the time to just not be inundated with all the business as usual in order for me to think and construct the pieces of writing in my head before I actually had some really productive days of writing. Now, this is an interesting one, and this is only upon reflection, and I realise what a privilege that is for me, that space to be in, that I can say that the process was a lot more rewarding than I thought it would have been. So, of course, we're all motivated by the outcome. We are investing all of this energy and self-resource into this so that we do receive that letter at the end of the year that says that, congratulations, you've been successful. But it was probably when the balance of stress and reward was in the favour of stress that I started to slowly detach from the outcome and really focus on the benefits of the process. And I think that's what got me through some of the tough moments. And I'll speak more to that on the next slide. Now, what not to do, again, according to me. Don't fear it. These are all based on what I wish someone had said to me at the same time last year. Don't fear it. Start in the tiniest of ways, small steps, because it is in this time where our calendars are already full and we're, most of us, quite overwhelmed by what our days and weeks look like. It takes a lot to actually face the idea of doing all the hard work of reflecting, putting something down, getting all the evidence together. Just even thinking about it can be overwhelming. So don't let the fear stop you, and equally, don't let it occupy your mind when you're not actively working on it. This was a big one for me. I think that the energy that I gave to this idea, or if am I going to be able to do this, and what if I don't, and then what, this is quite a big process because we are opening ourselves up to scrutiny and judgment by our peers. It asks for a lot of vulnerability from us as well. So I think all of this was quite energy consuming for me. And if there is one rule that I've learned from then on, is to not let something occupy my mind if I'm not actively working on it. And if you are driving and have a great idea, this is something that, again, I've learned, that you do not want to lose out on. Pull over, speak it or write it into your phone, and then it'll stay there for once you are actively working on the promotion and you can utilize it. Don't leave it to the last minute, again, based on my own experience, because it will provide some unnecessary stress. But don't be discouraged if you haven't started thinking or writing about it just yet. Don't keep it a secret. Again, speaking from my experience, I wish I had shared it with more people. And again, the value of this is for sharing your words with those who know you best will provide them with an opportunity to share feedback on how, perhaps on some points in the story that are critical for someone who doesn't know you to fully understand the impact of your work. So share it, and if you don't have a complete, perfect draft that you're happy with, then share segments of your application with people that you know can provide some really high value, critical, constructive feedback. And I'll get back to this point, which again I finished off on the last slide with: try not to get attached to the outcome. I think also this cost me some really valuable energy of where I was trying, and our mind does that, to preempt of how will I be if I'm not successful and what will I do. It is actually the process itself that is such a huge achievement. And I think I was able to realize this once I had submitted the application, because right up until that due date of Monday, I wasn't sure that I was going to submit it, because I wasn't sure that I was going to be confident and happy enough to share myself in that way if the application wasn't perfect enough in my mind. But once it was submitted, I realized that the outcome had become, it was very relevant, but I wasn't as strongly attached to it, because I was so proud of having written this piece of work, having done all the reflection, all the hard work of putting together what I had achieved and realizing where I'm at in my space at work, that it's only a matter of time. Obviously, I had not communicated what I wanted to well enough for the panel to deem it successful, but then I was going to get feedback on it, and I was going to go again with a much stronger, a more reinforced story. And the learning process, the experience of it throughout the year has been so valuable and has guided so much of my work, the way that I prioritize things, my alignment since then, that I'm really grateful that I gave myself the time to go through that process and then in the end submit the application. Of course, I'm grateful that I was successful. So with that, I want to wish you all the best of luck. Congratulations on being here. This is a great starting point. And I also want to say once again that if you have any questions for me, or if you'd like to meet up or share anything with me, I'd be more than happy to help in any way that I can. Good luck.